Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're taking a close look at the Buddhist concept of the 10 perfections.
Oh, very cool.
We'll be focusing on discernment and goodwill today.
Okay.
And for this, we'll be drawing from the teachings of 𝙀𝙖𝙖𝙞𝙀,
Wonderful.
a renowned Thai Buddhist teacher,
Yes.
using excerpts from his books Inner Strength and The Skill of Release.
I'm excited to dig in.
Me too.
Yeah.
So discernment, that's the first perfection we're going to be looking at.
Right.
And what I found really interesting was how 𝙀𝙖𝙖𝙞𝙀 actually breaks down 3 types of discernment in the pasted text.
Okay.
So we have learning by listening, thinking, and meditating. And, it really got me thinking about the importance of actually doing something to really understand it.
Absolutely.
Not just hearing about it.
Yeah.
Which actually reminded me of 𝙀𝙀𝙀𝙀's potter analogy.
Oh, I love that one.
So it's not enough to just hear about pottery. To really get it, you have to get your hands in there, mold the clay, mess up a couple of times.
For sure.
Yeah. And I think just like the potter, you develop discernment through that active application of what you learn from Buddhism into your own life.
Absolutely.
Seeing those teachings play out in your daily experiences.
Yeah.
That's where that true understanding, I think, comes in.
I completely agree with you on that one.
It's kind of like that quote from the Dhammapada about the fool who thinks he's wise.
Okay.
It says, a fool with a sense of his foolishness is at least to that extent wise. But a fool who thinks himself wise really deserves to be called a fool.
Right.
I think we've all met someone like that before, right?
Oh, absolutely. Someone who's totally blind to their own shortcomings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it really emphasizes that idea of honesty, with ourselves.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of 𝙀𝙀𝙀𝙀's teaching about recognizing our transgressions and forgiving others. He says, monks, these 2 are fools. Which is 2. The one who doesn't see his transgression as a transgression.
Right.
And the one who doesn't rightfully pardon another, who has confessed his transgression.
Right.
These 2 are fools.
Yeah. I think that's such a powerful teaching because to me, it really speaks to the heart of what wisdom is.
Yeah.
It's acknowledging your own flaws. So you can approach things with humility.
Yeah.
But also extending forgiveness to other people so you can break free from resentment.
Yeah.
I think both of those are just real signs of wisdom.
Like choosing your battles wisely, right?
Exactly.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
But also, don't shy away from the responsibility.
Right.
Which makes me think of 𝙀𝙀𝙀𝙀's teaching about burdens.
Oh, yeah.
Monks, these 2 are fools. Which 2? The one who takes up a burden that hasn't fallen to him and the one who doesn't take up a burden that has?
No.
These 2 are fools.
That's a good one.
It really highlights that need for discernment in everyday life.
Yeah.
Figuring out where our energy is best spent.
Right.
Sometimes we take on burdens that aren't ours to carry.
Exactly.
And other times we're avoiding the responsibilities we should be embracing.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point.
Yeah. And speaking of burdens, 𝙀𝙀𝙀𝙀 also talks about considering the long-term consequences of our actions.
Okay.
So he says, the course of action that is unpleasant to do, but that when done leads to what is profitable, is in light of this course of action that one may be known as a fool or a wise person.
That's interesting.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it seems like he's reminding us that true discernment involves thinking beyond the immediate moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes doing the quote-unquote right thing can be uncomfortable in the short term, but it leads to positive outcomes down the road.
Yeah.
And conversely, what feels good now can actually create problems later.
Right. Yeah, like avoiding difficult conversations.
Well, for sure.
It might feel easier in the moment
Totally.
to just let things slide.
Yeah.
But that could lead to much bigger issues down the line.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that and actually having the courage to act in a way that benefits everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you're connecting that back to discernment.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It's not always about doing what's easy or comfortable.
Right.
It's about making choices that align with our values and ultimately lead to more positive consequences for ourselves
for everyone
and others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does all this connect to the idea of right view? Which we see mentioned in the pasted text.
Yeah, so right view is essentially about seeing the world clearly.
Okay.
Without the distortions of our own biases or our preconceived notions. You can kind of think of it as seeing things as they really are.
Okay.
And it involves understanding, concepts like karma, rebirth, and ultimately forms part of the Eightfold Path.
Okay.
Which is a set of guidelines for living a life that leads to liberation from suffering.
Gotcha. So there are different levels to this.
Yes, definitely.
So it starts with, understanding these basic Buddhist principles.
Right.
And then it goes deeper into this ability to see through the illusions and distortions that we create in our own mind.
It reminds me of 𝙀𝙖𝙖𝙞𝙀𝙀 analogy.
Okay.
About the rusty watch.
Oh, yeah.
Where he talks about how we get caught up in trying to polish away every bit of rust.
Yeah.
But if we go too far and start taking it apart, the whole thing might stop working.
Right.
It's kind of this cautionary tale about clinging too tightly to our ideas and beliefs.
So even if we think we're doing good or have the right ideas, clinging too tightly can actually be harmful.
Exactly. It's the clinging. That's the problem. Attachment to anything, whether it's a material possession or an idea.
Right.
Even a certain view of ourselves can cause suffering.
So it's about that balance between understanding and letting go.
Exactly.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It makes me think of that story 𝙀𝙖𝙖𝙞𝙀 tells.
Okay.
About the old woman who burned her mouth on a cigar ember.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
And then pours water on all her matches.
What a great example of missing the cause and effect. Right?
Yeah. Makes me wonder, how can we cultivate this deeper level of discernment in our everyday life?
Yeah.
How can we start to see those causes and effects more clearly?
Well, Ajahn Lee talked about how breath meditation can be a really powerful tool.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So he says, what does discernment come from? You might compare it with learning to become a potter. The same holds true in practicing meditation by paying close attention to our breath.
Right.
We're not just calming the mind.
Right.
We're actually training ourselves to be more aware and insightful.
Yeah.
It's about noticing those subtle nuances in our experience, making adjustments, and learning from those adjustments.
So we're kind of learning to observe ourselves in action.
That's a great way to put it.
Like the potter with the clay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we practice, we start to see more clearly those causes and effects in our own lives.
Yeah.
We begin to understand how our thoughts, our words, and our actions create these ripples that impact ourselves and those around us.
It reminds me of another one of Ajahn Lee's teachings.
Okay.
Where he describes 5 different kinds of knowledge.
Oh, wow.
That arise from observing causes and effects in meditation.
Yeah.
So we have the knowledge of arising and passing away, the knowledge of danger, the knowledge of dispassion, the knowledge of fading, and the knowledge of release.
Oh, wow. It's like he's laying out a roadmap for us.
Yeah.
Showing us how observing the breath can lead to such profound insights about the nature of reality.
Right. It's not just about an intellectual understanding. It's really a direct experience of how things are.
Yeah.
And I just love how Ajahn Lee really makes these profound teachings so down to earth.
Me too. I love how relatable he is.
Yeah, it's not some, lofty abstract concept of wisdom.
Right.
He's giving us practical tools that we can use in our everyday lives.
That's why I think his teachings resonate with so many people. He's connecting those ancient wisdom traditions to the reality of being human.
For sure. Wow, discernment is such a fascinating topic.
Right.
But I think we should move on to the second perfection we wanted to explore today, which is goodwill.
Wonderful.
Or metta in Pali.
Yes.
Which is just this boundless love and kindness that embraces all beings.
Yeah, and it really speaks to the heart of Buddhist teachings.
Yeah. There's a passage from the Suttanipata that I just find so beautiful.
Oh, okay.
And inspiring.
Okay.
It says, think. Happy at rest, may all beings be happy at heart. May all beings be happy at heart. Let no one deceive another, or despise anyone anywhere, or through anger or resistance wish for another to suffer.
Oh, that is a beautiful passage.
Yeah. What strikes me is this idea of wishing happiness for all beings.
Yeah.
No exception.
Right.
It's not about picking and choosing who deserves our kindness. It's just recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every living being.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds simple enough in theory.
Yeah, it does.
But I can imagine it's probably quite challenging.
Oh, it definitely can be.
To actually put that into practice.
Yeah.
Especially when we encounter those people that are difficult.
Right.
Or that have caused us harm.
Absolutely.
You know, and cultivating goodwill is an active practice.
Yeah.
Not just
it's a passive feeling.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like with discernment.
Yeah.
Ajahn Lee provides some practical guidance for how we can actually cultivate this quality.
I like that.
And he emphasizes the importance of starting with ourselves. He says, if you want to have a mind of goodwill, you have to start out by not harming yourself, either physically or mentally.
Right. That's a great starting point.
Yeah, that connection between harming ourselves and harming others really intrigues me.
Okay.
I've definitely noticed in my own life that when I'm feeling down on myself, I tend to be a lot more critical and impatient with others.
Right. It's like our inner state creates a ripple effect that impacts those around us. You know, when we're harboring negative thoughts and emotions towards ourselves, it's just so much easier to project that outwards onto other people.
Yeah, and Ajahn Lee uses this great analogy about clearing space.
Oh, yeah. I like that one.
Within ourselves.
Can you remind me how he talks about it?
Yeah, so he says that we need to clear away the clutter of negative thoughts and emotions within ourselves to make room for goodwill to grow.
Right.
It's like if your closet is just jam-packed with stuff, you can't really fit anything new in there.
For sure.
But if you take the time to clear out some of that old clutter, then you have space for new, you know, beautiful things to come in.
Such a good visual.
Yeah. So it's about cultivating that inner peace and kindness towards ourselves.
Yes.
So that we can then extend it outwards to others.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's why Ajahn Lee goes as far to say, the intention to do harm is a heavy form of self-harm.
That's powerful.
Yeah, it makes you think about the impact of our intentions, not just our actions.
Our thoughts.
Too.
Yeah. And it speaks to the importance of being mindful of the thoughts that we cultivate.
Yeah.
And Ajahn Lee actually recommends developing specific types of thoughts that are conducive to goodwill, like thoughts of renunciation, non-anger, and non-harming.
So it's like we're actively choosing to replace negativity with more positive intentions.
Exactly. It's an ongoing practice, this conscious effort to shift our mental state from one of negativity to one of kindness and compassion. Yeah, it reminds me of another one of Ajahn Lee's teachings that I found a little puzzling at first. He describes goodwill as a table with 3 legs that can spin in all directions.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
What do you think he means by that?
You know, it's such an interesting metaphor.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, I see it as pointing to the expansive and transformative nature of goodwill.
Okay.
It's not just about wishing well for a few people we like or feel close to.
Yeah.
You know, it's about cultivating this boundless heart that can embrace all beings.
It's like expanding our awareness beyond our usual you know, circle of care and concern.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating this panoramic view of the world. You know, where we can really see the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah.
And from that place of expanded awareness, we can respond to challenges with more, you know, wisdom and compassion.
It's like developing a more spacious heart.
Yes, exactly.
One that can hold both the joy and sorrow of the world.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And it reminds me of Ajahn Lee's analogy where he compares anger and fire.
Yeah, he says that anger is like having a fire burning down our house.
Right. And then he suggests that we need to get life insurance by cultivating goodwill.
It's a powerful image to kind of illustrate
Mm-hmm.
the destructive nature of anger and ill will.
Yeah.
And it's about recognizing that.
Yeah.
Even when we encounter people that seem, you know, difficult or challenging, that there's still that inherent potential for goodness within them.
So it's about choosing to see the best in others.
Exactly.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm starting to get this, but I'm still wrestling with how to reconcile this idea of goodwill with the fact that some people just seem genuinely bad
or
evil.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people struggle with.
Right.
And Ajahn Lee actually acknowledges that complexity.
Okay.
When he says, we human beings aren't equal or identical in our goodness and evil.
Mm-hmm.
And then he uses this really interesting analogy of a farmer, a merchant, and a government official.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
He explains how diversity is actually essential for the world to function. We need farmers to grow our food.
Right.
Merchants to facilitate trade. And government officials to maintain order. And if everybody were the same, society would just fall apart.
Right. So it's like appreciating the interconnectedness and interdependence of all those roles and perspectives.
Right. And true goodwill involves recognizing and accepting those differences.
Okay.
It's about understanding that each person has, their own unique set of strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And that we all have something to offer the world.
Right. It's not about condoning harmful actions.
Oh, not at all.
But about understanding that everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah.
And we all have that potential for both goodness and badness within us.
Exactly.
And I just love how this all ties back to discernment.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the complexity of human nature, recognizing that inherent worth of each individual. Yeah.
And then choosing to respond with kindness and compassion.
That's what it all comes down to.
And this really resonates with me because it's so easy to get caught up in our judgments and our reactions. Right. But Ajahn Lee's teachings offer such a powerful framework.
Yes, they do.
For cultivating a more mindful and compassionate way of being in the world.
He truly does.
Yeah.
I find it so inspiring how he blends that ancient wisdom with such practical, down-to-earth guidance.
For sure. It's like we've been given this amazing toolkit for navigating life's challenges with more wisdom and compassion.
I love that.
I mean, we've covered so much.
I know, right?
And I feel like we're just scratching the surface here of what Ajahn Lee has to offer.
Absolutely. It's incredible how these teachings apply to so many different aspects of our lives.
From relationships to work to our inner world.
Yeah.
It all comes back to that. Cultivating a more mindful and compassionate way of being.
It makes me think of that saying.
Okay.
Not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some come to clear your path.
Oh, I like that.
And discernment, coupled with goodwill, really helps us weather those storms with grace and understanding.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. It's not about becoming emotionless or detached. True goodwill doesn't deny the reality of suffering or injustice. It acknowledges it and chooses to respond with kindness and compassion.
Even when things are difficult.
Exactly.
So it's not about suppressing our emotions or pretending everything's okay.
It's about making a choice.
Yeah.
It's choosing our response.
Yeah.
Rather than reacting impulsively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we take a moment to recap what we've learned in this deep dive into discernment and goodwill.
Okay.
So we started by exploring discernment.
Yes.
And I was really struck by the emphasis on active engagement with knowledge.
Yeah, you can't just hear about the teachings.
It's not enough.
You have to apply them.
You have to put them into practice. See how they play out in your own experiences.
And I think that active engagement then leads to a deeper understanding of cause and effect.
Right, which Ajahn Lee points to as a key element of discernment.
Right, and he even talks about using breath meditation.
Oh, yeah.
As a way to develop that heightened awareness of causes and effects.
It's like training our minds.
Exactly.
To become more attuned to the subtle nuances of our experiences.
Yeah.
And as we practice, we start to see those connections more clearly.
Absolutely.
And from that place of clearer seeing, we can make those wiser choices.
Exactly.
Knowing that our actions have consequences that ripple outwards, impacting ourselves and those around us.
Yeah. We also explored the idea of right view.
Right, which is about seeing the world clearly.
Yeah, without
those distortions.
The distortions of our own biases.
Our preconceived notions.
And our limiting beliefs.
And through that practice of discernment, we can start to see through those illusions.
Right.
And gain a more accurate understanding of reality.
And I think that shift in perception really opens up the space for goodwill to flourish.
For sure. And we talk about how goodwill really starts with being kind to ourselves.
Yes.
Recognizing that the way we treat ourselves really sets the tone for how we interact with the world around us.
Exactly. And Ajahn Lee makes that powerful statement that the intention to do harm is a heavy form of self-harm.
A stark reminder that harboring negativity towards others ultimately harms us as well.
Yes, and cultivating goodwill isn't just about warm, fuzzy feelings.
Right.
It's about that active choice to respond with kindness and compassion.
Even when it's difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's about actively choosing to replace those negative thoughts with more positive intentions. Cultivating loving kindness towards ourselves and extending that same kindness outwards to all beings. And remember that powerful metaphor.
Oh, yeah.
Goodwill as a table with 3 legs that can spin in all directions.
I love that one.
It speaks to the boundless nature of this quality.
Absolutely. It can encompass all beings.
Yeah.
Without exception.
It's about expanding that circle of care and concern beyond our usual limits, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things. And we also talked about how discernment and goodwill really work together.
Right, they're not mutually exclusive.
Helping us to navigate the complexities of life with more wisdom and compassion.
It's about understanding that everyone is on their own journey.
Right, we all have the capacity for both goodness and badness within us.
And Ajahn Lee reminds us that we human beings aren't equal or identical in our goodness and evil.
It's not about condoning harmful actions, but about recognizing that inherent worth and dignity of each individual, even those that might seem difficult or challenging.
And I think as we cultivate both discernment and goodwill, we start to see the world through a different lens.
Absolutely. One that is more compassionate.
More understanding.
And
more forgiving.
More forgiving, for sure.
You know, it makes me think of Ajahn Lee's teaching. That the heart at normalcy is the substance of virtue.
Ooh, that's a good one.
What does it mean to live from a place of natural goodness?
Right.
How can we cultivate that heart at normalcy in our own lives?
That is such a powerful question to leave our listeners with.
I hope it inspires them.
I hope so, too.
To explore these teachings further and see how they can transform their lives.
Yeah, from the inside out.
Exactly.
Thank you all so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Yes, thanks.
Into discernment and goodwill.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, may we all cultivate that heart at normalcy.
Yes.
And bring more kindness and wisdom into the world.